Hey, Jason here from Never Stop Building. We're going to start a series here on this pergola build. I did a timber frame pergola out there in Boulder, and I'm finally getting around to editing the video for it. So while we disassemble the old pergola, let me fill you in on the design of this. The client had this built some time ago, and water had gotten down into the screws and joints, and it was sealed with some sort of paint sealant um, that prevented water from actually leaching out. So it kind of just held all the water inside these logs, and they rotted out. And when we were investigating it, it became apparent that this was not going to be something that could be fixed. And I was able to sell them on a full knockdown rebuild. And that's what we are doing. We're doing the knockdown part. So we basically tore the whole thing down, cut it into pieces, and hauled it away. And then we're going to get into doing the foundation. So in this video series, because there's a lot of juicy details, I don't want to make just one build video that's 20 minutes long. So I think we're going to break this up into a couple different parts. This first video is going to be about building the foundation and cutting the stones that are going to go on the foundation. I'll have another video just about the posts, because that have some interesting stuff about scribing it. And I'll have one or two videos about the joinery and a video about the final finishing, delivery, and assembly. So stick along for the ride. I'll hopefully have this broken out into sections. And for all of those that are interested in seeing the plans for this, any of my Patreon subscribers can see the plans as part of the membership. So head on over to Patreon and check those out. Onto the build. So the client wanted this as by the book as possible, which meant I had to get all the drawings correctly approved by an engineer and submitted to the city and get the whole permit process, yada, yada, yada. Oh, that was a lot of money. We had to get a soil test. We had to have a drill, a sample drill. The engineer spec'd these enormous footings. And so we had to dig out these huge 4-foot deep holes and pour massive concrete footings to support this thing. Because I suppose in the chance that the 100-year snow bridged all the pergola rafters, we did not want anything bad to happen. I believe I was so busy mixing and pouring concrete that I didn't get a lot of footage of this. But here's a couple pictures of the pour and the finished piers that I ended up sending to the engineer so that he could sign off on it. There's these large 1-inch bolts cast into the piers, and the plan was to sandwich the posts onto some stones that would be flattened on the bottom. All that epoxied down to the piers, and then we would close up the holes in the posts where we tighten down the bolts, or the nuts rather, and that would make up for a clean finish. The client and his wife came out to the stone yard, and we crawled all over for probably like a half hour to find these two stones that had a good look, good sloping curve, with the post scribed fit to the stones. So we wanted to make sure that they were good stones, but I also wanted them to sit nice and flat on that on the two piers. So the first thing I did was I set the stones up on a flat surface and traced around so that I established a bottom reference plane. Once I had a line all the way around the stones, I flipped them over and I used my big gas-powered diamond-tipped water saw to kerf the granite down to that line. One of the big advantages of flattening out these stones was that I could use the total distance from the bottom of the stone to the top of the post to help set my layout in the future. So you'll see in the section where I scribe these, what I end up doing is I basically scribe fit the post to the stone, and then I know my total dimension from the bottom of that stone to where the cross beam on the posts need to be. And that basically lets me take into account any variations in the level. So I had a level string line that I measured down from on site. So I knew the distance from a reference point to the top of the piers. And then I also know a distance from that reference line to the top of the beam that spans the posts. So I can use those dimensions to calculate the distance from the bottom of the stone to the top of the post. That way, anyway, where everything's put together, that top post will be nice and level across. And then I could take a hammer and chip off all those pieces and then just start grinding with a diamond blade and flattening out the bottom. So I had two flat-bottomed stones. Flat-bottomed stones make the rocking world sit correctly. Something about, I don't know. Yeah, so I ground all the bottom of the stones flat, and now they could sit nice and flat on the piers. I made a template that was going to be the circle of the post, and use that to figure out exactly where I wanted to drill my center hole for the bolt, and sort of see how the post would sit down on the stone, and that the top of the stone curved away from the center of the post as much as possible. And then I was very concerned with drilling this hole perfectly level and up and down. I guess it'd be perfectly plumb. So I built this triangle platform with these scaffolding jacks so that I could have a really level platform to set the stone on. And then when I pulled my hammer drill in there, I could make sure the drill bit was always level and I was drilling exactly straight down. That way I did not have any shifting of the bolt and the stone and the post and anything that would throw off my design. So that's what I'm doing here. I built a little wood jig that would hold the drill bit nice and straight until I made some progress into the stone, and then I rigged up some hoses and some sprayers to keep water, and it was a lot of drilling. I mean, granite is a hard rock, and these carbide bits, probably an undersized hammer drill, it was a good long while to get these holes drilled through. And I was a little worried too because I didn't want to crack the stone after all that work, but we got the holes through both the stones. So I suppose for this first video, why don't we stay on the theme of the way that this pergola attaches to the rest of the world. So we just finished the stones and the foundation, and that's how the posts attach to hold up the one end of the pergola. Now on the other end of the pergola, the engineer specified these large steel brackets that I'm fabricating here. One interesting thing about this design is that each of the four large beams they are about 18 to 22 feet long. They are anchored to the house at a different angle. Each beam is at a different angle, and only one of the beams is at a right angle to the house. So all the brackets had to be manufactured to a different angle so that when they mounted to the house and the beam was bolted into the bracket, it would line up with the joinery at the other end of the large beam that was supported by the posts. So that's one unique detail throughout this whole project, is that we have four different half lap joint angles, four different house bracket angles, and all that was, very tricky to keep lined up over 20 feet and to keep the gaps down. These brackets are just 1/4-inch plate steel. I had the steel shop buzz out the sizes I needed from plate with their plasma cutter, and then it was just a matter of welding them all together, making sure the holes lined up, and that's all the brackets. So we got brackets to attach the pergola to the house, and we have stones to attach the pergola to the ground. So in the next episode of this series, we're going to talk about transforming square timbers back into round logs. So the round tree became square timbers, and then they became round posts again. And those will then be scribed to the stones. So thanks for watching this introduction to the pergola build. Please jump on Patreon, help support the channel, and you can take a look at the plans for this pergola build and follow along and do, pretty much whatever you want with those plans. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.